So now we're heading into some ideas about the mechanics of coping, or how to live with all this, how to deal with this. It's, there are a gazillion ways to break these down, and this is an absolutely incomplete list, and that's hopefully we can get to some ideas you guys have. But it does feel useful to me to break it down into, there are certain things that help us just be. There's certain things that help us do. Obviously, we're a very doing-oriented culture. We are our accomplishments in so many ways, or that's how we see it. Our value, our worth, all that stuff is wrapped up in doing. But I also think, when I've been around a lot of people towards the end of life, the folks who really seem to have found their way to a bigger field are the folks who have found a way to learn how to be, and to feel value in their existence, in existence at all, not just the strategic side of things, of this on behalf of something else, but being for its own sake is a very powerful zone and very useful. So I really like, and I don't think it needs to be one or the other. We can be in certain ways and we can do in certain ways, and they're not opposed. We can do them together. Again, how we do things really matters. So here's a kind of list, just to quickly bop through. One is, I realize I've repeated feel. Well, feel the good stuff. Yeah, okay, so if you're gripped in fear, you got a huge laundry list of stuff you got to do just to get to treatment, just to take care of this or that. This idea of sitting and just feeling anything can feel, exotic, almost pesky. Like, look, I don't have time to feel. I got to keep rolling. I would push you on that. You can milk that energy for a day or two or a week or a month, but beyond that, if you're forsaking your being for all the doing, you're going to get quickly out of sorts, burn out, and be removed from big parts of yourself. So it's really important, while you're dealing with all these hard things, coping with all these hard things, is to counterpoint. Feel the good stuff too. I watch myself when I'm gripped with with anxieties or fears. It's like I watch myself narrow I don't want to feel anything because I'm afraid I'll get stuck there. And if I start crying, those tears will never end. If I feel the good stuff, well, then I'm going to get seduced into thinking life's okay again, and the other shoe's going to drop, and then I'm going to be even more terrified. I'll have farther to fall. So if I can stay in this sort of hypervigilant state, then I won't be surprised when that next shoe drops. Yeah, that energy doesn't work very well for very long. I think rather what works pretty darn well is, you got to feel the hard stuff. So as part of a balancing, or as a counterpoint, as a buffer, load yourself up with the good stuff too when you can. Don't blow past that. It's really, really important. And there's so much momentum involved in treatments and taking care of things. You really do need to pause every once in a while, lift your gaze. Gratitude. Boy, if you can find your way to feeling grateful, and I suppose there is some true power to just actually sort of pushing yourself to say thank you, and then the feeling will flow from the word. But really, you got to find the feeling one way or another. And finding gratitude very often has to do with appreciating something, which has to do with pausing and seeing it, not judging it so much. So you got to pay attention. And when you're in pain, there are a lot of forces yanking on you. It's very hard to pay attention to anything else when you're in pain. So you got to exercise this muscle. But gratitude, if you can find your way to it, what a powerful force along the lines of love. I mean, it's way up there. It can pull you through a ton. Accepting things. Huge point. Like one of the most obnoxious things we can do to each other is to deny each other's existence, deny each other's experience. That's the crazy making, gaslighting thing. It's such a vile act to deny someone their experience, to say that's not happening when you know it's happening. It can make you. It's a crazy making thing that we've been doing to each other around this. But so accepting is really, again, you have to see, you have to appreciate, you have to look, and you say, okay, you're here. Okay, illness. I'm an amputee. Fine. Okay, I accept that. That doesn't mean I have to like it. That doesn't mean I have to be all chipper about it. I just have to acknowledge it. And that, I think, that will help build your capacity to be with the truth. Relate to it. It's related, of course. But so much of life is experienced through relationships. Maybe all of life is experienced through relationship. And the more time you spend in a relationship, the more we see ourselves in each other and in everything. That's waiting for you if you wade into the relative zone of being a living, breathing animal. And just be. Well, we've already kind of said that one. Like, you don't got to do nothing. Just meditation's very good for this, but just sit and just be. Do not let your thoughts come and go. It doesn't need to be on behalf of anything. In fact, I recommend it not be on behalf of anything. One of the hard things that's going on around meditation in the West now is it's being used, it's being depowered by leveraging it towards like, okay, I meditate, a good company will encourage meditation so that you can be more productive. Now you kind of have to erase that second half of the sentence. Just be, and whatever, come what may. This is not a strategic meditation. All right. Feel, well, I already said that one. And then lastly, call a truce. Again, the goal here is not to somehow do away with fear, but is to navigate it, to keep it in its place, to act from when it comes time to act, that you're not just acting from fear. Coping really requires that you sit with a lot of things that you can't change. That's so much the task. And sometimes, like with fear, like I've worked with a lot of patients who've been full of fear around death. And over time, we talk about it, and we work with it, and we look at it, and dance around with it. And at the end, fear often doesn't go away. It's just in its place. It's just like, oh, okay. It's just another sensation that we deal with, another impulse that we deal with. And it can even become like a recognizable, friendly force. I've seen that happen a lot. In this way, you kind of say like it defangs the fear. Doing on the doing side, sure. Set goals, a way to kind of power through. Once you realize, sometimes our response to time being limited is to, okay, now that I've only got X amount of weeks, months, years to live, well, now I got to get really serious about doing all the things I want to do in this life. Great. I don't mean there's nothing wrong with that. Again, that's not opposed to being a certain way while you're doing things. But so sure, set goals. Okay, time is limited resource. I'm gonna do X, Y, and Z. I'm gonna point myself. It can help pull you through just about anything when you feel like you're in free fall and spinning out. Pray is a very active, I think of it as a very active state, a very beautiful state, and one that for my mind, it doesn't require religion. I don't think you need to have faith to speak to the universe, to speak to God, to speak to the world outside and inside of yourself, beyond yourself, but including yourself. And prayer also can be a nice catchment for asking things of the world. And usually when it's the tough stuff of prayer, you are happy when you get what you're asking for, but it usually isn't expected. It's sort of like, I think so much the power is daring to ask and daring to listen. Oh, love. Love, is love being or is love doing? It's a little both. Again, this is a construct here we're playing with. But it's huge, probably the biggest. Your love is this blanket that can pretty much snuff out just about any fire I've ever come across. It is sort of it's the big one, if you ask me. But the trick of it, I think, for most of us is it's got to go both ways. I mean, a lot of people are very good at giving love, loving out, loving oneself, much harder in some ways for a lot of us, and receiving love, whether from yourself or others, can be really, really hard. And developmentally, I think of this as one of the major themes that we should get to in a life, we should hope to get to in a life, is to learn to feel love, to feel lovable, and to position ourselves so that we get to feel lovable. Okay, next one here is change your mind. Sure. This is where psychedelics are very interesting, to borrow from Michael Pollan's, the title of his book. you can, I don't think we're preordained in so many ways. I think we can change how we think, and that affects how we feel. And that allows us to cope with something. You know, if we can change our perspective on something, the same situation for me, amputation was a horrible thing. Over time, with support, with love, I got to see what I was learning from it. I got to see what I was gaining from it. I got to see how I could change my perspective. And in this way, I began to change my mind and to turn my life into something that I could live with. It's a work in progress. Creativity is a beautiful thing to impulse to work with, like you have anxiety, struggling to cope, all this stuff coming at you can't deal with. Well, if you could find a way to work with it, play with it, paint from it, put all that energy into a garden, or it doesn't need to be artwork. It can just be creative thinking. But we humans, that's a major strength of ours, is being creative animals. And the raw material from which to create with, I think that's right, includes pain, includes suffering. Like some of the best artwork you ever find won't just be a simple, happy, superficial smile. It's got a lot more going on than that. Then finally, laugh. I think we just need to set, you know, these are important to note this. I think in this subject, it can feel so heavy. I really like pointing out, like, hey, laughter is really one of the best coping mechanisms you will ever find. Because it's like art, it's a creative act. You're making something from your pain. You can transmorph it, transmogrify it. You can move it. You can transcend it. Like if you get the last laugh, if you can find your way to a last laugh in your life, that in a way that implies like you're on it. It didn't get you as much. You got each other. You know. So there's a lot of power, and there's a lot of. I'm very serious about humor. And then not on this list, I guess I'll just throw it out there. Perfectly reasonable is good old distraction. You know, sometimes coping with all this stuff, I just need to zone out. The trick with zoning out is to remember to zone back in.